are live, I think. So that's good. Guys, I've got a wonderful, wonderful treat for you all today. Most of you on my channel love guitar. Most of you love bluegrass guitar, but to me, I feel it's important to kind of branch out and make sure that we learn as many skills as we can, in, not only in other genres, but maybe different formats and things like that. And for that reason, I have one of my very favorite guitarists on the show today. And before I introduce him, I want to make sure that the sound is all right. And it is. I just heard myself. So we're good. Please make welcome, if you're there, Mr. Marco Sfogli.
Hey there.
Awesome. Glad to have Marco with us today. You've inspired me to no end. I first learned about you on Spotify, actually. I think I had it on maybe a G3 playlist because I was listening to a lot of Steve Vai stuff. And then I think it was Still Hurts. That song came on the radio or on Spotify, and I was like, what is this heavenly music? What is this? Because I heard the wide intervals and stuff that I was really interested in. And I quickly turned the shower off, dried off, so I could get to the phone to find out who that was playing. And it was your album, Still Hurts. There's Hope. And I immediately went to search for you on Spotify, found everything you had, consumed it all rapidly, found all your YouTube videos, and have been doing so ever since. And that was about two years ago or something like that. But if you don't know Marco, he is the guitarist for James LaBrie's band. He's currently involved with Icefish, a group called PFM, an Italian group. What does that stand for, Marco?
It's an acronym for Premiata Forneria Marconi. It's a bakery.
Oh, okay. It sounds like it's a mix of all your names.
Yeah, it's a bakery. They took the name in the early 70s. But they had to find the name, and one of the band members actually lived nearby one of these bakeries, and they suggest the name, and it was welcomed because it was weird, and actually Pete Sinfield, who was the I think he was King Crimson lyricist, told them to use the acronym PFM instead of the long name,
Oh, okay.
So they kept the 3-letter acronym since, and yeah, that's the band.
So yeah, so that's 3 groups plus your solo stuff that you've performed in. Now you haven't been touring with James LaBrie in a while. I think he's with Dream Theater too, and it's probably hard to get together with schedules and things like that. Maybe one day you'll come out with another album with that. I think that would be really good. A lot of good guitar playing on those albums. But today's format, guys, I just want to kind of keep it relaxed, laid back. If you have comments, I know there's nobody viewing right now, but that will probably change. If you have comments, please leave them. Family-friendly comments, please. And we will address some of those. I'm going to take questions at the very end if anybody has any questions, because I've got a few I've got to plow through first. And I'm going to try not to go over too long today, no more than maybe an hour and a half, if that, because me and Marco have issues with hot rooms, and it gets really hot in both of our rooms.
Right.
And we talked about that last week. So we're going to make this nice and short. I was talking with Marco earlier, and we were talking about how it's really easy to find a lot of his lessons and things like that online. You can, and I've stressed this on my channel many times, the importance of observing people who are playing, the importance of observation and watching what they're doing. You can learn a lot, even if you don't know what's going on. Later on, you might learn some things, and you go back to the video and you're like, okay, that's the minor pentatonic scale, or that's a certain arpeggio, and you can kind of draw licks, steal licks that way. So you can find a lot of his work on Jam Track Central, jtcguitar.com. I've got all the links, by the way, that we're going to talk about for Marco's stuff is in the description below, so you can check those out. Okay, but the thing is, you can find all his instructions and things online. So what I want to talk about today is some things that not many other people talk about when they talk to guitarists. A lot of times it's about their tone, or it's about how they got started, which I will get with Marco on that in a second. But I want to discuss things like, how do you make a living playing guitar? Being a career person. As you see, Marco commented on my shirt earlier, guitar is my retirement plan,
Right.
So how do we do that? I'd like to pick his brain on some mixing ideas, because I've talked about mixing it on my channel here. So and this will be live and available for you guys watching later. So to start with, let's give Marco the stage here. And my first question is probably going to be how you got started playing guitar, how you've grown as a guitarist, and then I guess from there we'll get on to some more business-like questions. So take it away, Marco.
All right. So, well, back in the '80s, when I was born in 1980, and my family my family still is a family of musicians. My dad passed away recently, but my mom is a professional singer. So on my dad's side, he was a classical guitar player. So there was always, tons of guitars at home, tons. So it was easy to pick up, an instrument, and just strumming and hearing the sound of notes, and that's how it basically started. I just loved the way the guitar sounded, and even when they rehearsed at home, like, with the rest of the band, I was always there, watching and being fascinated by the sound of whether it was the guitar or just my mom singing, or the violin, the flute. Because it's a folk band, so they had all the popular instruments like violin and flute and percussions. So I started on percussion actually, and I started by being instantly attracted by everything that could make noise. And then later on, I moved on the guitar because it was it was easy to have someone in family to explain at least the basics of the way it worked, and some. But I didn't take it too seriously before actually I finished high school. So that whole time, I just was my home player. I didn't have a band. I was the kid that spent more time on the guitar than maybe getting out and playing football with friends. So I spent my time on the guitar. And it was a classical guitar at first. I got my first electric. I was probably 8, so I totally begged my father to have a guitar, an electric guitar, because I listened to I think it was Van Halen's 5150, and that record changed my mind. It absolutely changed my mind when I heard that, from the first song, Good Enough, all that weird sound that Eddie was doing with the guitar, and I didn't even know it was a guitar at first. So it was so weird. It was all the hoarse harmonics and vibratos and weird stuff. And when I discovered it was a guitar, so I wanted to actually do that thing and do that stuff. So I begged my father. He bought me a very cheap electric guitar at the time. I can't even remember. It was a Washburn something, one of those early cheap models to begin with, and I started, as a self-taught, basically, on the electric. So I started by learning on the records and trying to, break down leads and chords, and using, distortion. It didn't even had a good amp at all. I had it was funny because I got the electric guitar, and I got one of the first Yamaha rack modules for the guitar, which was I think it was called the SPX 50, which was a studio module, studio rack thing with effects, and it had some distortions inside. Wasn't the best sound around, but it worked for me. And I started, doing my things, learning, the songs that I really liked. Then it was, don't forget, it was the A time for instrumental guitar, the late '80s. So I had all the early Joe Satriani records available. My older brother actually was responsible for bringing all the Shrapnel stuff, and Shrapnel is a label. For those of you who doesn't know, it was a label in the 80s that used to promote and produce instrumental guitar records. So all the early, Greg Gow, Vinnie Moore, Michael Lee Firkins, all these names were produced by Varney at the very beginning. So, all the early Satriani records and Vinnie Moore records, my brother used to buy stuff and bring it to my house and introduce me to this beautiful world of, the shred in some ways. So I was introduced very young, but I didn't take it seriously until I finished high school, where I didn't want to go to the university. I just wanted to play, so I stepped into my parents' band. I played mainly acoustic guitar and mandolin and other folk instruments. So and I had the chance actually to tour a lot as a young guy with them. Playing places like Germany several times and France, and I went as far as Colombia playing with them. So it was really cool. It was really cool. The beginning were really cool, and was still in those times where the guitar was a primary instrument in the mainstream music.
Okay, great. Yeah, you mentioned Shrapnel there. I'm thinking of Paul Gilbert. He
As
was
well.
on Shrapnel. He was definitely on Shrapnel. Trying to get my layout situated right. That way we can see both of us. So you mentioned you started touring and everything as a young guy. How old were you when you started touring?
You mean touring with the actual touring thing? It was with them, with my parents, and it was the very first gigs. Actually, I think the very first gig I stepped in for the band bass player. So he wasn't available, so I played this huge festival playing bass, and I was still in high school, and they saw I was probably, that was my path, playing in front of. I didn't suffer any, stage fear or anything. I was there helping, the band, so I was very happy and very that was my thing, and you understand when something is your thing because you just you do just a little effort to make it happen. It just comes natural in some ways. So even if it wasn't my main instrument, I actually probably never played bass before, but it was cool. It was rewarding. I did like it. So after that, I just promised I would finish high school, and so I did, and then I started touring with them. And that was my first. It was '98, so 2-3 years of constant touring, all over Europe and some gigs abroad as well, overseas, and at the same time, I was playing electric guitar. So I had, like pretty much I think everyone else, I had a cover band. We were playing like clubs and pubs and private parties, and just earning our dinner basically. No money involved most of the times. I think it didn't change that much. Anyway, and we were playing, just the weirdest set lists ever done. Because
original music, or was it a lot of covers?
Was mainly just covers, but to please everyone in the band, you can imagine, you had the pop guy, and then you had the funk guy, and then you had me, who I was huge well, at the time it was like, late 90s. And I was a huge Dream Theater fan, so he had to please everyone. So the set list was a huge mess because you had like Dire Straits, you had the Stones, and then maybe you had another day from Dream Theater. It doesn't really,
So the audience didn't really know what to expect, huh?
right, exactly. It was, and then some, local pop artist song because you got to please the crowd as well, and they want to hear the local stuff. So yeah, it was funny because we didn't care as a young guys. We just didn't care about the big mistake we were doing, by including everything musically possible to please everyone in the band, and having this huge mishmash of genres that didn't taste it like nothing. So we were just pleasing basically ourselves, and but that helped. That helped because I was constantly well, we weren't playing like every week, every day. We were just whenever available. Um, it was like maybe once every month maybe we had a gig. And it was funny because I first of all I come to meet some of the guys that later on contributed to my uh, growth as a musician and to my albums. Like the drummer Salvio is one of those guys that I met when I was a teenager, when I was playing in those club bands, and we're still playing to this day. He's my favorite drummer ever, and one of my favorite drummers. Salvio Maiello. He's the guy who played on Steelhearts and Andromeda. He's the drummer on those songs on the Reaction. He's basically the main drummer
Is he the
for
one that on Jester's Tears was using the Mark? Um,
that guy.
drum?
It's
Okay.
that guy. That guy is what like one of my childhood friends, and
He's great.
yeah, he's a great drummer, and that's one of those uh, sides that helped me, and that helped me to grow as a musician. So yeah, then touring with my parents, that helped a lot because I had the chance to extend the crowd from maybe 100 to 1,000. So playing in front of 1,000, 2,000 people. So those were um, average to high seated
Yeah.
places. So yeah, that's how it started. I started touring, and then it went up
Uh-huh.
all the times.
So you, Marco and I are about the same age. He's about a few months earlier than I am.
Oh
Uh,
well, just turned 40, April
in
4th.
April, right?
Right.
April 4th. Yeah, my
Yeah.
birthday is August 17th. So I'm catching up to you. But anyway, so let's just say you said it was 98, so I was about 18.
Right.
Um, so let's just say 18, you started touring because that was after high school. You started touring with your parents, and you were playing some electric guitar in a cover band. So, how long, in terms of years, did it take you to go from playing in a cover band to getting your first major gig, which I would think would be James LaBrie? I mean, how long of a span was that? And what caused you to be so proficient on the instrument? What did you do that somebody like James LaBrie would take notice of you?
Well, actually, didn't take that long because I was still playing in cover bands when I got called. So that was
Okay.
funny. Yeah, because I was yeah, I was. I think that I even had a few gigs when I came back from the recordings of James LaBrie. The first record I did with him, which is Elements of Persuasion, back in 2004. So I was still playing with my cover band, and I, if memory recalls, yeah, we had a few gigs when I came back from the recording. That was late 2004, like um, yeah, maybe around Christmas we had like a party gig somewhere So I came back from doing, this huge international thing, and I still had a few gigs with my core band, which was a lot of fun actually, because nothing really changed, but I was just a tad more secure, and had more, confidence, even more confidence, playing um, such, sometimes those are underrated gigs, but um, they're important, I guess, for any musician. Playing in front of a bunch of people, whether they are 50 guys or just 100 or 200. I think it's very important to get confidence, and to get out of your comfort zone and playing in front of someone that uh, is there maybe to listen to you, not just to eat their stuff. And so it didn't take that long actually. I was in the middle of doing both things, and how did that happen? I guess, um, well, the story, uh, it's quite a long story. I'm trying to make like a short version of it.
Yeah,
Um,
you don't have to go into a lot of detail. That gives me that's 6 years if it's 2004 from '98.
right.
So in that 6 years, I'm not so concerned as how you got the gig as what it was that you did in those 6 years to level up your playing, to become a better player.
Well, I think I was already, well, in 2004 there wasn't that much different than '98 in my case. I
Okay.
was pretty much there, both I guess technically and melodically. The only difference that I couldn't actually express myself um, uh, on a non-cover tune, on just um, authentic material and self-written stuff. So with James, I had actually the chance to play my own things on something unreleased. So on completely brand new tunes and songs. Because even more when I was with the cover band, I was constantly improvising and doing my stuff, whether it was unless it was a really known solo from a really known song, but I was already doing my thing, um, where it's possible. So uh, I knew I couldn't play exactly maybe Sultans of Swing, the solo as it is on the record with fingers. So I was doing my version on it with a pick, and changing things. So I was already constantly experimenting with my techniques. So when I got the LaBrie gig, I I'm confident to say I was 99% there, both technically and melodically. So and they were actually looking for that approach. You know, Originally, well, this is a known story because originally they were they had Andy Timmons, which is one of my favorite guitar player ever. Uh, they had Andy Timmons scheduled for the recording. Then for some months passed, and by the time they booked the studio to record, um, Andy had his solo tour scheduled, so it didn't work anymore, and they had to find a replacement. And the cool thing is that I knew Matt Guillory, which is James' main songwriter, um, yeah, writer basically, and keyboard player. Is the one that writes 99% of the songs, and we knew each other because of my buddy Alex Sargento, who I was collaborating with at his first solo record. So he knew Matt. He got me and Matt in touch through the early days of internet, and the early Messenger, Yahoo Messenger stuff.
Mm.
So we
That
got
was
in
before,
touch.
that was before YouTube.
Yeah, that was the times of MySpace
Yeah.
and no YouTube yet, no Facebook, nothing. We had MySpace. We had you know whether it was ICQ or
Oh yeah,
Yahoo Messenger. Those
we're really
were
telling our age here, Marco.
yeah, you know,
AOL and all that good stuff.
absolutely. And so I got in touch with Matt, and we did actually had um, a few kind of heroes in common. And one of them was Andy Timmons. He was so stoked to have Andy on Elements of Persuasion. And so when Andy couldn't, make it anymore, uh, he had the, I would say, the innocence to ask me if I was interested. And so I said, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I was shocked because, it was one of the, you gotta remember, those were times when um, so internet wasn't popular, so it was really hard to get out of a small town and go straight on to an international level of musicianship. uh, it's like going from 0 to 100 in a second. So I was shocked when he asked me that, and he sent me a song without guitars, which ended up being my audition song, which was slightly out of reach. Don't know if you remember that, which is kind of one of the, if I had to describe myself as a solo player, um, that's probably the tune I choose, uh, you know, to describe myself as a soloist. And that was written in an entire evening and night because I wanted to deliver as fast as possible. So, oh, also, we didn't had plugins like all the modern stuff, and home studios were just starting to get to the surface. So I had my little, really little home studio with a cheap mixer, computer. So I did everything with a, remember the big red beam, the pod, you know,
Oh yes, line 6.
the Line 6 pod, the first, I think it was the pod one, the early one. So I did all my demos on that one, and I sent them back the next day. And we didn't hear each other because it was summertime. So I was constantly waiting for an answer, which he gave me like in pretty much 3 4 weeks. And he just said, "You're in the band." James heard the stuff, and um, he didn't like my playing. They probably, I know for sure, they auditioned someone else that never told me who they auditioned for. Um, and eventually I got the gig, and a few months later I was in Canada tracking guitars for the first, well, international record that I've done.
Awesome. A lot of good stuff there. A lot of good stuff.
I,
So use the line 6 pod as a lot of your tones then. I remember when
well,
that came
I
out.
think the early ones, it was actually, I had a few snippets on my early website that I did with the pod, and that was the cheapest thing you could get at the time to track guitars at home, and it was easy to use, and it didn't sound that bad actually. Um, um, I think a lot of records those times, around the early 2000s, have been done, has been done with a pod,
Yeah.
maybe through an amplifier or whatever. But I heard good things about it. I just used the closest I could get to a boogie lead tone, added some delay, and then just straight into a Cubase at the time, and that was it. And then funny, um, and that's how I learned the very early days of my um, trying to craft my mixing skills. When I came back from Canada, I've been there for 15 days tracking guitars, both leads and all the rhythm stuff, through real amps and real, it was a sort of in a cottage on a lake, and they brought all the stuff in and made it a studio for 15 days. And I remember when I came back home after 15 days there, I got an email saying that they forgot actually a couple of leads on a couple of tunes, and one of them was drained. And for some reason, yeah, for some reason we got so well together there. It was really a beautiful environment, very relaxed. It was everything but a studio session. Everything but a studio session. It was relaxed. I think it was at James' brother-in-law house in the woods with lake on the back, and it was very very relaxing. So for some reason they forgot to record a couple of leads on those on Drained, and the second song was Into Deep, the outro solo. So they sent me this email, can we record from home? And I said, I'll try. So I had my, I actually didn't record it with the pod. I had a 57, and I had a Mezzabarba, the combo, the tremolo verb. So I took my $50 cheap mixer. I just plugged, 57 on the cone. I probably bedroom levels, and I did the drain solo, and I sent it back. It's probably one of the best sounding leads, the whole record, just by fortune, and just by I didn't even try that much. Just plugged the microphone. I did a couple of levels in my headphone, and I hope that the neighbor won't be that bad at me. And I just went for it. And the result was probably, I remember the engineer actually saying, "Wow, what did you use?" And I was like, "Man, it's better if I don't tell you what I did use. Let's keep it a secret." But it was like a $50 mixer it was a Behringer mixer or something like that. It didn't even had good preamps at all, and a 57 on the cone. That was it. And he had the delay, in the studio. And that was it. That was fun. That was one of the first, actually, one of the first times that I record myself, other than plugging into a digital thing and trying to get a good sound. Just went the old school. I had a good amp. I said, can't sound that bad. But I didn't expect it to sound that good actually, because if I listen to it now, it's probably. That lead is the essence of my lead tone, because it's fat, but it's singing. It has all the right frequencies, and it has sustain, so it has pretty much everything. And I swear it wasn't recorded at more than 1.5 volume-wise, because I couldn't really. It was a 100-watt head at home. 100-watt actually combo at home, 2 for 12, super loud. And I remember I cranked the gain probably 3/4, so it was like 3 o'clock, something like that, and just went for just crossed my finger, and it eventually worked out.
And the amp head was what was a boogie, but what was the model?
Was the tremolo verb.
The tremolo verb?
Yeah, it's probably it's basically a dual rectifier, but according to many, it's one of the best rectifiers Meza ever, put out, because it didn't have the extreme compression of the rectifier solo head, and it was called the tremolo verb because it had the tremolo on both the clean and the lead channels, which you'll never use actually on a rectifier.
Yeah.
But it was cool because it was a cool sounding amp, because it didn't have the shrill on the top end that rectifiers are known to have. It was actually warmer and had a lot of sustain. And I think they discontinued like more than 15 years ago, probably. So, but it's probably one of the best rectifiers they ever made.
Okay. So we moved from James LaBrie and that era to now we start seeing a lot of your solo stuff come out. Obviously, you've played, as a guest on other things, and you've been with PFM for years, and Icefish is more a recent thing. But what I'd like to talk about is your actual solo stuff before we get into the business side of things.
Mhm.
You started with Still Hurts. When did that come out?
I mean, when did I write it?
No, There's Hope.
There's Hope came out in 2008.
Okay, so we go from There's Hope to Remarkable.
Right.
Wonderful, catchy name, by the way.
That was actually James LaBrie idea.
Okay, was that?
So he said, you should have him for There's Hope. He sent me an email. He appreciated the mention in the record and said you should have called it Remarkable. It's a cool name. And I just said I'd send for the next one, and so I did.
Nice. So Remarkable came out. So it's 2008, and then Remarkable came out when?
2012.
2012. Was that exclusively through JTC?
Remarkably, yes, it was.
Okay, I thought it was. I thought it was exclusively through Jam Track Central, and that's great because you can get your tabs for the album. You can get your some backing tracks and things like that, I believe. But I mean, obviously, you're also like on Spotify and places like that too, right? So the tabs then are more of and the backing tracks are more of the perk going through Jam Track Central, and then just I believe it was February of last year, right? 2019. Wonderful, remarkable album came out, and it was called Homeland. And I have binged on that thing for a year now. But it was very interesting. After listening to the first two albums, to me, Homeland was a little bit more laid back, not in the sense that it wasn't as metal, but in the sense that it was almost a reflective album. It was an album that was more melodic. You took your time a lot more. I'm thinking of songs like the title track, Homeland, and Dawn. Very slow, very melodic, but also you got some monster shred playing. I think it was Speed of Light. That's one of my favorite tracks on there. The first one, the 12th Hour, really progressive, really really good sounding. But even then, it's not that that large gain sound like Still Hurts is, and There's Hope is, and The Reaction is. And so, could you describe your progression as a player and as a songwriter from the very first album to the latest album, and maybe what you're thinking now?
All right. So, well, first of all, I started writing the There's Hope album as soon as I finished the Elements of Persuasion tour. That was 2005-06. That's when I started writing for the solo album. And actually, I didn't want it to do a solo album at first because I didn't feel like I didn't feel I could fill a stage with my own stuff, just having the bullseye on me and the spotlight, and being able to keep a whole gig alone. I didn't feel like a solo player until it actually came out, until the whole thing was finished. Because I always felt I was more of a band player. I still think I'm more of a band player. I prefer that environment musically, having all the responsibilities and really the spotlight on me, and keeping the stage and being the main guy on stage. So I started writing tunes because back then a lot of people actually heard me on James LaBrie record. They just were suggesting to write a solo album, and I had a few ideas that I had stored in my hard drive. So I just thought, why not? So I finished some tunes. Some of them actually were written way before the album came out. So some ideas like for example, Memories, for example, was written with Matt Guillory during the James LaBrie tour. It was one of the tunes we used to play as a duo on stage, so James could have a rest and wait until the next song kick in and do this crazy vocals on it. So, but even a few songs like yeah, Genius, for example. Genius was written with Alex, and it came out on his album with a different well, not that different arrangement, but different solos. The arrangement was pretty much the same. It was different solos and different sounds, different mixing. So I just wanted to give it, more heavy sound. So I just went for a new approach for the song, and even stuff like even Still Hurts was written way before. Was written around 2000. At least the basic idea of the tune was written around 2000, and then I finished for the record. And then some new songs were just written for, like Andromeda, like Seven, like There's Hope. Those were written for expressly, for the album. And the main thing about that one was, at some point when I listened back, those few times I listened one of my records, and I feel I just wanted to show how many styles I could play. So that was the main thing on that record. That just, it was appealing back then. But if I look back, it was probably too much. Because there's, the prog tune, the fusion tune, there's the Spread the Disease, which is kind of a funk blues tune, of the country tune, Texas Barbecue, and then you have, the straight rock tune, like the ballad, like Never Forgive Me, or something. Yeah, it's a plethora of styles that didn't really. I don't think it made me a favor in some ways, because you have to catalog someone from some ways. You can't have too much. Even if I see myself as a lunch, you can have too many dishes, and too many plates. You have to be careful, about the stuff you're gonna eat. And I was just throwing too much, and that's probably the one of the mistakes that I've done with that record. It's just putting too much on the plate.
That goes back to your cover band. You really didn't. Maybe in that stage you were kind of defining what your identity was as a musician too.
Probably, yeah, very, very, very probably. It's those still those kid approach to music, when you want to show as much as possible in just a short amount of time. And if I, as I told him, if I listen to it, back to it now, I see it as a good record, but it's a little bit immature in a way. And on a few levels, not just musically, but even the mixing thing. So we can talk a little bit about it. And I was starting, and I always mixed my records. So Homeland and Remarkable as well. I always mixed my own records, because I believe if you can make it, nobody but you knows how you wanna, how you want your record to sound. So I started to learn how to mix something. So I was in my learning curve when I started there. So that's one of another reason I usually don't listen too much to my old records, because I always find issues, troubles, and mistakes mixing wise that I tried to fix over the years, at least for my clinic songs. But I remixed some of the old ones just for my own sake and for playing, and for having, a sort of balance with the new tunes.
Mhm.
And I discovered so many mistakes mixing wise. I really wanted There's Hope to have that kind of awake tone, overall tone, but that was like I was like 14 years late since Awake came out, and I've done mistakes, with the drum sounds and reverbs, too much reverb overly, and yeah, I was fascinated by the 80s and the 80s sounds,
Uh-huh.
but that was a 2008 record, so you can't really have it, mixed like a 1988 record. So
Yeah.
uh, I did a bunch of mistakes on that. But musically, all I can say is that, I was searching, for my identity in a way.
Okay.
So that's why I think I threw so much stuff inside.
Okay. So then
And
Remarkable comes along.
Remarkable was more focused, I guess, because that's the record I wanted to do. Exactly the record I wanted to do. Um, um, since I started writing it, and instead of picking up stuff that I wrote in the past, I decided to go for all new tunes, all new stuff. This is what I am today, and actually I think that you know that paid in the end, because some of the tunes that when I play at clinics or fair trades, whatever, you know, stuff like the reaction or the forest, or even heavier stuff like um, yeah, even in Jester's Tears was pretty for it. It wasn't ideas or stuff that I saved on my hard drives and then I worked on it, later. It was just, you know, it was preconceived in a way, written for the record. So it was a reflection of what I was into, and as I think it's closer to Homeland in some ways, both sonically and the songwriting side. Because there are more songs, not so long songs, just I think the average like 4 minutes, 5 minutes, you know, at the best, and yeah, even sonically it's more organic, not so much reverb, not so much effects. I really wanted to be, much modern sounding, and my sonic references changed. So it wasn't Awake anymore. It was more, modern sounding, modern bands. So even the drums wasn't that, affected, not so much roomy, but it had a good ambience, and I paid attention. I think 8 songs out of 10, I engineered the drums as well in the studio. So I went to a studio with my drummer, and I set the microphone around the drums the way I wanted it, and I got this, good sound, um, without moving any fader yet, and without putting any compression in EQ yet. So it was already a big sounding drums because of the room, and because I wanted it that way. So we recorded it that way because we wanted a very wide sounding drums. So we put the overhead very, kind of far away each one, each other, and and yeah, still the learning curve was going up, and that was in 2012, and then after 7 years, I learned a thing or two about mixing more, and I think Homeland is exactly uh, what I wanted to be in 2008 when the result came out that I just couldn't be. So I think it's more mature, less showing
Hmm.
off, less shred for the sake of it, shorter songs, more melodic, um, absolutely different uh, inspirations. Like for this one, Homeland was inspired by the 12 string stuff, was inspired by Kip Winger, late stuff, solo stuff, and I really wanted to write something in that theme, and even the heavier songs like the 12 Hour or Speed Limit. Speed Limit actually was, I did it like a throw in the past because I remember something that I wrote like when I was 18 and was playing in those cover bands. One of my first um, riffs that I wrote, kind of the Van Halen driven riff, like a little bit like uh, Panama, those kind of triad riffs,
I
and
can hear that.
oh yeah, and I just remember for some reason I didn't have any audio files from the time, so I just remember that riff in my head, and I just built a song around that riff. So I just finished that song after 20 years, maybe, and 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 I did a cover, Inner Light. It's a Chris Brooks cover. Chris is a awesome guitarist from Australia, and that's a cover. And it's unfortunate that it didn't came out on the digital releases. It just was it was written on the physical copies, and it's just so unfortunate that it didn't came out on the digital release. But that's a Chris Brooks tune rearranged. I did the whole um, beginning. The mellow part didn't exist on the original, but pretty much the rest is exactly like he played on his record. And I just wanted to give it a better mix because he recorded like in early 2000 where you had electronic drums and I think he pretty much programmed everything. So I really wanted to give it a human feel. But that's a cover, and stuff like Dawn. Dawn was intended to be for a singer, but I never found out a good singer to. I don't write lyrics as well, so I had to find a singer that write lyrics and melodies. And I had that tune in my closet for years. That could have been a very old tune because it was written already when I did the record. And but those were songs written with a singer in mind, and then you know just kept postponing and postponing until I just say, what, why not? Let's make the guitar the singer. So I wrote the melody, and it came out. The arrangement, the whole song was written, a few years ago. And what's funny is that this record, compared to the other, was written in a different way. I usually always write the melody first, and then I build the tunes around. For this time, I just went the other way around. I just wrote the songs first, and I pretty much had all the arrangements done and all the stuff done, and then I started building and creating melodies um, on the song. So I kind of went the pure songwriter approach by writing the chords first and then the melody, which is something that didn't work for me before. It didn't work for There's Hope, it didn't work for Remarkable. For some reasons, probably because I changed my behavior, so I started listening to different things and more on the pop songwriting um, world. But it just changed, and finally I was able to write whole songs, and then I started building the melody on it, and that worked for 9 songs out of 10. Everything but the cover was written that way.
Okay, nice. Now you mentioned the that inner light. That's why I get the speed limit and inner light. I mix both of them together, and I never can remember the name. I always call it speed of light, but I'm always referring to speed limit. Um, inner light. You said it wasn't released on digital, but I got it when I bought it on digital through, I think it was iTunes is where I got my copy from. So it came out on digital for me. It may have been a certain platform or whatever, but I noticed that the tabs were not available on JTC because I was assuming that was a copyright thing. So, but that was not a big deal for me.
Okay. Yeah, I think some places like Spotify, they didn't have the tag for the original author of the song, so it was with Inner Light Marco Sfogli. It's not that way. It should be
Actually,
you know
I can't. I was thinking it was iTunes, but maybe I'm thinking that because that's what it's on. What I listen to it on. I may have got it from JTC
okay.
because I did. I either one of two things. I either got it from JTC with a deluxe pack, or I just got the pack without the album with all the tabs and backing tracks and stuff like that. One of the other. I've got it on JTC.
All right.
So speaking of these albums, please check out the links below because there's all kinds of Marco Sfogli-esque stuff. You can find his Facebook, his YouTube, his Instagram, his stuff on JTC. All that stuff is below. And also, just to give you a little hint, whenever you go to search for Marco on YouTube, if you go to his actual YouTube page, there'll be some videos. But when you actually search for his name on YouTube, there'll be more videos because he's done all kinds of gear videos and demos and things like that with his guitars and with the amps and stuff that he's promoted. So if you search for his name, he'll actually appear on other people's channels, but you'll get a whole lot more content that way. All right. So now we've talked about the albums. Let's dig into a little bit of business sense as far as becoming a guitarist and a musician making a living by it. Obviously, because of the world that we're living in now and all the shut-ins and quarantines and everything, we're kind of forced to stay at home and almost be reinventive about how we go about, our businesses. Now, I've been doing business online for a few years now through private lessons, mostly though through my own guitar courses and things like that. But as far as what to get into, there's so much stuff I've got written down. I don't even know where to begin. One thing that I was really interested in, I feel like I've done things in reverse, Marco. You did all the touring and everything at the beginning, and I feel like most players do this. They get good at their craft, they play for 20, 25 years, and then they kind of lay back and start teaching things. I feel like I did the opposite. I'm starting to work on my craft now in my 40s, but I've done all this teaching for the last 8 years. And so that kind of interests me in clinics in the sense of how do you go about doing clinics? That's one great way to make money because you get your concert because you're going to play some of your tunes, to
Right.
backing track or whatever. You get to interact with your audience, build your fan base. You get to teach them things that you're excited about teaching, you're excited about that you've learned. So how do you go about, first of all, what are your business models? I mean, you've got, you play guest solos, you've got, you play on albums, you do your own albums, JTC, endorsement, all this stuff, and clinics. So give us kind of an overview of what you do to make money as a musician and, just some tips on how we can get involved in some of that.
Well, it's different than 10 years ago because now the biggest income, at least now before the lockdown, the biggest income for me was live shows with PFN because that's pre-intense touring band, and as intense I mean that we played like 5-6 shows per month, even 7-8. So and I'm talking about theaters, so 3,000 4,000 seats, or big places like festivals and all that. So when you do like 8-9 shows per month, that's a good income, and that was the main thing from when I joined the band in 2015 up until the lockdown, but we had to take a break. And on the business side, I always thought that today, selling records, and if you want to make a living by selling records, is the biggest mistake you can do because everything changed. When I did start making my own records, I remember probably the early 2000s were still the very last days, when bands could actually make a living by selling records. Then the whole Spotify and well, early days was the Napster, the file sharing and everything that just kind of gave the music business sort of huge break, and that involved less money to make records because didn't sell as many, and the whole thing just kept going lower, 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 lower level, kind of until the best you can do is to promote yourself. That's the ultimate point. Labels, unless you're super big, they just don't care. They just don't care because the return money wise is so miserable that they just don't care about producing a band or an artist. Go figure, a solo artist today. So when I met the guys at Gentrack, they were probably the most honest guys uh, I ever met, because they not only they run a beautiful thing, which is this website where you can find lessons and packages from some of the best names. I'm not talking about myself, but if you see the artist roster, they have like Guthrie Govan, they have Andy James, they have stuff from uh, Martin Miller, all the top-notch players, Alex Hutchins, all these great guitar players that have done stuff for them, and they also push. They're pushing. I mean, they're the most supportive guys I ever met. If there's like a couple of months where they feel I have nothing to do, just keep pushing me doing things, doing packages, masterclass. So they have, their brain is always running with new ideas and new stuff. So they're very honest, and that's um, uh, a good income as well, because you get royalties on your stuff, and they sell my records for me. So they're kind of sort of label, not in the sense that you will find a record at the Virgin Megastore, but still they're available. So for me, basically, has always been uh, touring, especially with PFM, and the stuff with Jam Track Central, including my albums, and also another big thing where online lesson or lessons in general, because that's a dimension I kind of lost when I joined PFM because of the amount of gigs and amount of stuff I had to do away from home, so I couldn't really you know have a break time and give lessons. But these days during the lockdown, and I just I kind of got back from what I left in 2015, and it's quite different because before then I just wanted to have a steady touring band, which I found in PFM, and now it seems to be kind of the opposite. So in 5 years I toured the world several times. I've been everywhere but Africa and the Oz. I've been practically everywhere, from South America, North America, Asia, Japan, whatever, and multiple times. So I've been touring a lot, and all I wanted to do is to find a more relaxed uh, kind of lifestyle,
Yeah.
if I can say. Well, I miss touring. I can't say I don't, but you know, having this break kind of helped me to find back with my um, um, I will say I'm more inclined now than 5 years ago. Giving guitar lessons where I just wanted to tour back then. So lessons were kind of a side thing, and now I feel more comfortable. I kind of like it more than 5 years ago. And so yeah, I'd say on the business side, pretty much touring, online lesson right now, and kind of steady income from the jam track stuff that I do, and every now and then there's also some collaborations, like playing a guest solo on someone's
Hmm.
and doing stuff for someone else. There's always someone that needs a guitar on a
Yeah.
record, and I've been lucky in these actually last years to be able to record on quite a few records. Uh, some from friends, and some from unknown people that help them on the business side as well.
Okay. So you mentioned doing solo work. Um, I don't know if you noticed or not. I don't know what you're seeing on your screen, but I was kind of pushing some of the.
But yeah, I've seen the Jet Track catalog a little bit.
So I was going through that for people to get an idea of that. Um, so I kind of didn't know. I don't know if you talked about clinics or not, because I was trying to focus on doing that. But you mentioned solo guitar and solo work and things like that. What do you think it takes for a guitarist, any musician, I guess, to get noticed by people who want you to play on their album, who want you to play on their track, or who want to contact you to do clinics and things like that? What do you think it takes to get noticed to do things like that?
Well, I think you have to at least have a name that attracts people. At least that, at least for a clinic. Um, for a record is made, can be different. It can be a good guitar player that plays exactly what the songwriter wants, or just whether if it's an online collaboration or a real studio collaboration. But for the clinic stuff, there are actually a couple of ways. You either are well-known artist that brings a lot of people to the clinic, or either clinics are set up by companies, so you either are endorsed by someone that needs the products to be showcased in some ways. And I've done that as well, for Ibanez a few years ago, and actually had some plans to do more clinics for Ibanez, but unfortunately the lockdown just postponed those clinics. And so you either are a, a real established name that brings people, because promoters, even if it's a solo thing like a clinic or a masterclass, you need to bring people in, and whether it's school or a store, an in-store appearance, whatever. So for a young guy, I would say you have to have at least a product tab, and to have a product tab nowadays is quite easy, because you need a good sound. You see online, there's tons of stuff from guys, doing solo records at home by their own, home studio. And the problem is that there's so much stuff out there that I consider myself kind of lucky, because I came out to the public back when this was just starting. The whole internet stuff was just starting, and by just starting, I mean that the even the technical level on the guitar was still more towards the 80s and 90s that it's today. Now you just go to the average guy that plays is an unbelievable player. I don't know,
Yeah.
the bar was set so high in the last 10 years or so,
Mhm.
because of the easy access to informations and stuff about music and technique, which wasn't available when I was, well, when we both were, I guess you two were the same age, so when we both started and were kind of trying to get at that level. Now it's like
Yeah.
that. You know exactly how to play a certain part. You know exactly what technique to use, and you know exactly how that technique is performed. How to get better at that. So it totally changed. So this means that I was lucky, because I consider myself one of those still old school players with a modern attitude. So the attitude is definitely modern, but more towards the my favorite players, which were like Joe Satriani, all those old school guys. And today's just the bar is so high that it's kind of difficult to stand up and being recognized. So you gotta write good tunes. That's the only difference
Okay.
that a guy can make today. From the average to really good ones, to write a good tune, to write good stuff that not necessarily guitar driven stuff, not necessarily for guitar players. You gotta write stuff that pretty much anyone can sing or can understand
Mm-hmm.
a wider audience, which is the biggest compliment I guess I got from people that not necessarily guitar players, just the average listener that enjoyed listening to some of my music because it didn't sound like a guitar-driven song. It didn't sound like a bunch of exercises. It was kind of structured in a way, like a pop tune can be. And yeah, I'd say definitely be a good songwriter before being an awesome guitar player. That may help.
That's great advice. I think that's I would concur with that. I mean, that's because a lot of times we get so I'm like you. I get blown away at how it seems like every week or every day there's a new person, a new guitar player that and the what kills me is that they're like 19 or younger, and they're like prodigies and they're like virtuosos, and I'm like, what gives? What are these people? What's in their water they're drinking or something? What in the world has got them to be so proficient at that age? And here I am in my 40s and just trying to get better. Um, so I'm the same way. I think it's so easy to get lost in that world of I got to get better, I got to play better, I got to do this. When you're bypassing the whole thing, is that no matter how good a guitar player you are, there has to be a song for you to play on, and being able to craft that skill of writing good songs and writing good tunes and melodies and melodic playing. I think that's very important. That's a really good point on that. Um, I'm going to show a clip from your JTC guitar album package of the latest album, Homeland, and hopefully it'll play audio. If it doesn't, you guys can watch it later on. If you can find the video really easy by going to the JTC Guitar website. And so I'm going to go back here, and here we're going to play this, and hopefully you guys can hear it. Let's see what is going on here with Marco's album Homeland on JTC Guitar. As you can see, everybody, Marco knows his stuff. So this is one of the packages that you can get. You get, I think it's 3 bonus videos, maybe it's 2, I don't remember, that aren't available anywhere else, I do believe. And you get the tab pack, and I think you get the backing tracks. So definitely you need to rush out and get this if you want to learn a lot of Marco stuff. He also has other things available. I've already scrolled through some of these, tons of stuff. I've got his Essential Metal Volume 1. I've got his 20 metal licks. I've got his 20 album phrases. I've got all that stuff. Too much that I could even consume, but I love listening to it. I told Marco last week, we've been doing private lessons together, and I told him last week that I actually put his album, all his albums that I have, and the different licks on my playlist, so that I'll put it on shuffle, and sometimes I get a song, sometimes I get a lick, sometimes I get another song. So as much of that as I can consume, I try. So you can definitely check that out. Go to JTC Guitar, and once again, if you want to, the links are in the description below. And I haven't mentioned yet, but please do subscribe to Marco's channel and subscribe to this channel. Click the bell for notifications. Marco releases things quite regularly on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. There's something that I noticed in that video that we haven't talked about yet. Now, unfortunately, due to technical difficulties, Marco is not be able to play today, but you saw what he can do. You saw what he's capable of. But there's something in the video I wanted to talk about now, and that is your signature guitar and your endorsements and things like that. And looky there. out of thin air, it magically appears. Marco's signature guitar. What's that?
The headless guy and his green guitar in the video.
Yes. So tell us about your guitar, and then we'll talk about, a little bit of endorsements thing, because I noticed there's some things behind you that you also use. So go ahead and tell us about that guitar, why it's to your specs, why you like it and prefer it to be your signature guitar, different things like that.
All right. So, well, first of all, I'm endorsed by Ibanez guitars since 2010. Yeah, that's when I got back to Ibanez after being sort of a rider around a few brains and trying stuff, and so I've been kind of loyal to the Ibanez guys in 10 years, and Ibanez is actually the first guitar that I started to really improving with in my childhood, because I had an Ibanez JPM in the 90s when I was playing in cover bands and doing my first things, and so I always kind of gravitated around Ibanez guitars, that it was so simple to go back and wear your favorite pair of shoes, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So in 2010, I bought an Ibanez guitar just to check out where they were at the time. I kind of lost track of Ibanez for 10 years. But I bought an Ibanez, and I was amazed, because as soon as I got it, it was like, a blast from the past. Just like some stuff was so easy to play that, I called the local distributor. It was hopefully Ibanez was and the distributor was the same as Mesa Boogie. I was working at the time, so they had both Ibanez and Boogie, so it was even easier for them, to deal with an artist for several brands, instead of having just one thing, and then maybe having a different guitar from different distributor and stuff. So even for clinics was much better. So they were happy to get me in the family, and the relationship went great, at the point that 2014 I got my first custom guitar, which you probably saw somewhere, is that Sunburst, flame Sunburst guitar. Always three-way switch with a Floyd Rose. That's it's called the MS1. It's the very first custom guitar I got from Ibanez, and that was done on my specs. I really wanted the guitar to be that way, and I used it for up until I got my signature, which is it's actually was sort of a surprise from the guys, because I think because I've been loyal, and I've been I guess I've done a few videos in the past, when they came out with the premium stuff in the early, early 2010, 2011. I was one of the first guys to actually embrace this new model because I really believed they were great guitars at an affordable price, and they are. And the video where I had the kind of violet guitar and with the super figure top, where I was playing, the reaction. I think that video actually did like a million views on YouTube, so they were kind of surprised, and they checked out, more about me, and then they did me the custom guitar, and then the relationship went to a point that they wanted to give me like a signature try and see what happened. My dream guitar available to public as well. So I decided I wanted to go with a premium model first, which was great. I still have it and I still use it. And if you can find it, it's a great guitar at an affordable price. And then, like 3 years ago, maybe 2-3 years ago, they went on this. They embarked this AZ model kind of route, where they wanted, the kind of a player's guitar, something that was more, appealing to not just the average metal and rock players, but even session players that play, many different styles. And they brought me a guitar. They were so kind. They were kind of doing like a Europe trip, bringing guitars to their endorser, because I've been kind of active on the suggestions and everything about the AZ basic models, having the cutaway that way, and having both, two humbuckings and single humbucking, having a 22 fret. Now, between a few guys in the roster, we had this, they brought all these, schemes of guitars that they wanted, and all different details, like the headstock details. So I've been kind of, active in the production of this AZ model. Then at some point I was kind of exclusively playing it. They brought me in Rome a prototype, and I played like for a whole year. It was so comfortable. It was so different from any Ibanez I played before, because of the chunkier neck. And I don't know if you can see it, but because it's always very weird with cameras. But it's not your average whizzer neck. It's like a deep C neck, kind of chunky. It's beautiful roasted maple neck. So it's not, kind of susceptible to the climate changes. You don't get any problems bringing this from Alaska back to, Brazil, for example, because because there's no humidity in the neck, not humidity at all. They just bake the neck in a special oven at a certain temperature, where it removes all the, humidity and stain from the neck, and it cook it and seal in this beautiful brown, kind of chocolatey color, which is beautiful. So I was really happy to ask for for my next signature to be an AZ model, and I really wanted to be like a stripped down version from the regular AZ as far as electronic goes, because the AZ, the production model, the known signature AZ, so pretty much 99% of the AZ stuff is, there you go, you got it. So it has you got two humbuckings.
Mm-hmm.
You got two humbuckings.
Get out for us there, Marco.
Yeah, there it is. So you got the two humbuckings, and you got this switch in the middle. You got the 5-way and the switch in the middle, right? So the switch in the middle is basically they call it the Dynamics, which allows you to change, all the pickups from being on humbucking to single, and then mix and mash all the different configurations with both pickups and the 5-ways. I just wanted a stripped down version of it, so an easy kind of approach. Since I've been, I grown up on a JPM, so I'm kind of used to having the 3-way here, and kind of doing my pickup switches that way. So very easily. With the 5-way is always either too stiff or just not in the right spot when I want it. So I kind of miss it sometimes when I'm on a 5-way switch. So I really want the volume moved down. Usually the volume on a regular guitar is kind of here. So it's higher. I just wanted the volume down because when I play, I rest my pinky here, and every time I had my volume here, I had to change the fulcrum of the point. Just don't hit the volume. And same thing with the 3-way switch. It's just so easy for me to go and change it. So it's basically a stripped down version. We kind of an unique color you won't find in any other signature and production model. Is called the Fabulous Green. Right. It's a beautiful maple top with the flame maple top actually, and I really want this color in fade to black, just green on the middle. And I got Demarcius, which is another plus because they the production model has same Seymour Duncans, and that's how it started. And we didn't want to put actually any traces of signature, so there's no name on the headstock. For that's actually for sale. There's some certain people that they kind of freak out when they say signature on the headstock. So we just decided to put a logo on the back.
There you go.
If you don't want the back control cover, you can just take it off.
Yeah. So
that's the only signature stuff on the guitar, aside from the electronics and all the stuff. And it's basically it's an alder body. I say flame maple top, as a bridge, kind of floating bridge. It's a Goto. It's basically a 510 Goto bridge with locking tuners. It's the guitar that I do like 99% of the stuff. When I'm not using this, I'm using a totally different guitar, which has single and humbucking. When I need a pure single coil sound, which for some tunes, it's kind of mandatory because you get the middle switch where you have these two pickups in out of phase and kind of magnetic reversed position where you get a sort of clean strat sound, but it's not as stratty as your fourth or second position in a real strat, with two singles. So for any other stuff, I use a different guitar, but this is kind of my go-to guitar for pretty much 99% of the stuff I do. So and they're cool. The Japanese guys are so cool to me. Really, it's a beautiful company. They make great guitars.
Yes, they do. I love my AZ. It's an awesome guitar. I love it. When I saw it, they came out with the Bacote top and that Bacote grain. I had to have it. So
that's a beautiful top.
I love it. And so with myself, I'm like you. I prefer Seymour Duncans. And my first guitar with true Seymour Duncans is this one. You probably see it back here on the wall just a little bit.
All right.
The RG EW 521 MZW, which is an exotic wood, and it has Air Norton and Tone Zone. Tone Zone I love. I had it in my Strat for years. I got the little single coil, the single coil size version of a Tone Zone. Loved it. I noticed these pickups really sound good. It seems like they conduct a little bit more noise. I don't know why, but this guitar does things noise-wise that one does not. I don't know why. And the only other thing is I'm getting used to it a little better. but the neck kind of threw me off. Since I'm used to the Wizard necks, I did have a Strat for years, and so the neck felt kind of like a Strat, but it felt almost a little bigger than I'd like. My favorite Ibanez neck so far that I've had was from an SA guitar. I don't think it's like Satriani's model, but it's kind of close to that in body style. It's the red one that I had on a couple of videos, and that neck was almost a combination of the Wizard and this, just that in between. To me, it was thin enough, and it still had that roundness to play those blues licks and things like that. So yeah, so you've got Ibanez guitars. You also, there's all kinds of other stuff you have, but the other thing I was going to talk about is I see you got some amps in the background there that you're pushing here lately.
The wall of destruction here.
What's that?
Is the wall of destruction.
Wall of
Oh yeah.
Tell us about your wall.
It's like a couple of 100 watts, both.
Okay.
So it's 100 watt and 100 watt. It makes a couple of hundred. And I just got this. This is the first head that I got from the Mezzabarba guys. This Italian amp builder, which is getting a lot of recognition in the States as well. They're distributed in the States by, I can't remember the name of the distributor. It's based in LA, Overdrive Distribution.
Okay.
They look like a Ferrari with the red transformer.
Yeah.
Huge, big transformer. This is one of the best sounding amps I ever had. Actually, not because I endorsed them, but really, it's one of the most organic sounding amps and punchy in your face amps I ever had. And the Trinity, while the M0 is more kind of British voiced, more like a Hot Rod Marshall amp.
Okay.
The Trinity here is kind of the American version of the M0. So it has more of an American sound. It's kind of
maybe more modern.
Yeah, and it's sweeter in the high tops. This is a beast.
Okay.
It can go from plexi sounds to it sounds like a Soldano SLO 100 sometimes. But if you just change the feedback control, you can go from more of controlled and focused sounds to full blast negative feedback going back from the input to the output from the output to the input back, and you get a lot of peak attack and things like that. Well, the Trinity, this is a 2-channel head with EQ in common. This is a 3-channel head because you have the clean and the drive channel and the overdrive channel, and plus it's all MIDI controlled, so you can control it with your MIDI pedal board. It's not cheap, I tell you. It's in that Soldano range.
Would you call it like more of a boutique amp, maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
You're easily from the 3,800s to 4,000 for a head like this. At least the 3-channel, but it's totally worth it. I mean, when I got this like a week ago, I did try, the test that I do with real amps. Always, it's like putting a few pedals in front. So I tried one of the pedals that work great on some amps, doesn't work that great with some others, which is the exotic compressor, the SP compressor, which I got years and years ago, and it works great when you have a super clean amp. But when you have a little bit of breakup, it really depends from amp to sound great or not. And it sounded awesome on the first channel with a little bit of drive, and on the second channel, so on the drive channel, it worked great. You get this huge, sustained tone, and I really liked it. I recorded a few things already just to try the amp, and it sounds amazing.
Wasn't Homeland done on the M0? Was that the amp you were using?
No, that was before I got this amp. That was still digital stuff.
Okay.
So, but I kind of, the Homeland tone, I've been able to recreate the main sound tone on the first channel of the Trinity with a compressor in front, because the original one was recorded with XFX using a dual amp preset. So it was like a Black C and an AC30 getting to one cab with a compressor in the loop.
Okay.
So it was a kind of weird preset, but it worked for the tone. I really wanted to have a sort of, kind of Fenderish kind of breakup tone with a lot of compression, so to have a lot of peak attack. And it was kind of hard to actually reproduce it on a real amp because of the nature of the two amps running together. And I did a couple of tests with the Trinity, and it sounds absolutely spot on.
Wow. Yeah. If you guys want to see Marco using this Mezzabarba amp, you can go to YouTube and just type in Marco Sfogli Mezzabarba.
There it is.
It shows right there, and they do cut through the mix really well. They sound amazing. I also did a search, actually mentioning they're more of a boutique style of amp, but through doing some research on these amps about a week or two ago, I found out there was one guy that actually took one of the Mezzabarba amps apart, and he was looking at the build quality, and it is second to none. I mean, if you look inside this thing, the circuit board and everything completely professionally soldered. The wiring is completely organized. A lot of times I've done wiring on my guitars before, and a lot of times you take those apart and you get like a mess. And you open that amp up, and it's just like completely streamlined, high quality components, high quality, all these things that are in those amps, and they really, you can tell that they care about what they're doing. And they're not just going to send you something that's lackluster. So definitely check those out. Marco, we're coming to the end of this. I know this because according to my little thermometer here,
it's like
it's
105.
It's about 80 degrees in here and sinking down to 84-ish range. So
that's great.
A couple things I'm going to ask you at the end of this, and that is, would you describe for us, the watchers, a day in the life of a professional musician? What do you do during the course of your normal day? Because I'm the same way. I'm like, sometimes I don't know what to do. This would be a good example of time management and different things like that. How would you describe how your day is set up and how you try to what's the word? Conduct. How you try to direct your day?
All right. So when I'm not touring, of course, when I'm home, the average days I wake up. When my kids went to school, it was a wake up, prepare the kids, bring them to school, then go back home and start, going through, the usual stuff, which is reading emails and answering emails and checking, some social stuff, which I prefer doing it in the mornings because, I'm kind of fresh and I tend to forget things, more the day goes by. So I prefer doing some things in the morning after a good coffee, of course. And and then I start, I kind of practice a little bit these days, especially these days, more than in the past when I used to tour more, and my practice regimen was basically every day at the gig. And so I do, all my stuff. I try to keep my chops together, doing some exercises, and pretty much the whole morning, goes by that way. So it's between, checking out stuff and see if there's something, or maybe, it can happen that I have to, promote something for whether it's Icefish or my solo stuff. So I kind of prepare, things for the social medias. Or if it's a video for Gem Track, I start, setting up the studio to shoot later in the day, and then I go, to lunch like every good Italian does, and after that, I go and get my kids at school, because my wife gets she get out of home pretty early in the morning to go to school, and she teaches. So I take care of some stuff, and then I go back home. The kids, I try to play again a little bit, if noise permits in the house. Because the good thing about having a studio in the house is that you don't have to drive to the studio. The bad thing is that distractions are everywhere, so you can't really concentrate and get the most out of it at any time. So I have my fill moments where I can get in and be productive and writing, or just recording or doing interviews, or online lessons. I have specific time of the day where it's much better and much noise free than others. And then if there's lessons, I set up my lessons so they are kind of in the afternoons where it's possible, or in the evenings. And then I watch a movie with the family when possible, when there's something interesting.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much my daily routine. So it's when it's not when I'm not inspired, I spend the whole day, right? Because there are those days as well where I just wake up and I have this idea in mind that just I don't have to let it go. So I turn on the computer, I bring the kid to school, I keep singing this melody in my head. So I go back home and I start writing, and sometimes I even forget, eating for lunch. So, I just go straight on, because I have to finish, some stuff, and then I just, chill out and relax. But, those days where I have the inspiration, those are the crazy days for me, because I have to at least kind of convince myself if it's a good idea or not. So I write the melody, and then I start putting the drums, the program the drums actually, and maybe put the bass and the keyboards and see if things works out. And so I spent a lot of time doing that. And those are the different days. Then usually those happens every now and then. But the average day is pretty much anyone's average day when it's a home day. When it's a touring day is quite different, actually. It's it's much more usually when it's a PFM tour and we're away for more gigs. If it's a driving distance, we usually drive us ourselves. So we have a van. It's like a 9-seater, and it's usually me or one of the other guys, the drivers. So I kind of drive the whole band, and then there's we try to arrive the gig early. So if there's a hotel, we try to arrive. So we get the rooms, and we'll rest for a little bit. Then we get to the sound check, and then we have the dinner, and then the show time. Go to bed. It's a pretty tight schedule, all organized. So it's kind of a different day. Sometimes there's an early rise because driving distance are quite long, or if we have like a day off, it's just a rest day. And if it's a city we've never went to, usually me and a couple of the other guys just go sightseeing and checking stuff and buying useless things. And like it's me and the other guys. We're big. Like it was like a couple of years ago. I went to the U.S. Actually, we did the it's called the Cruise to the Edge, which is it's a cruise that leaves from Miami and goes to the Bahamas, and there's all this 4 or 5 days of cruising actually, and you play on the ship. So there are several stages. So you can have PFM, yes, That year was Neil Morse with Portnoy, Jordan Rudess, Flying Colors, all the Prog stuff, and usually the Cruise to the Edge is the Prog cruise. Okay. So we left from Miami, and we when we came back actually to Tampa, we had like a couple of days off, and me and the other guys, we went sightseeing what was around, and we spotted a mall. As soon as I spotted the mall, my word is shoes. Sports shoes. There we go. So I have my fellow guy, that is a big sport fan as well. So we go there and we try every pair of shoes that we like. So it's either basketball shoes or t-shirts, like authentic NBA t-shirts, which we both are fan. And so if you want to spot us, you can find us at any official NBA dealer or shoes dealer around the States when we are there. So it's pretty much a staple, and that's how we spend our day off. So just sightseeing. We went to Chicago. We saw the whole. We tried to get the most out of it, and we saw the city, and we went to the characteristics places. When I went to LA, we've been to LA. We played the Whiskey A Go Go Club. So we were on I think it's called it's on Sunset Strip anyway, where the famous one of the famous bars is, where I can't remember the name, but anyway, we just went full trip on the whole road. We saw everything possible. We just like the tour days are quite different. It can be pretty boring or immensely interesting, depends on the day and the city and everything.
Yeah. So you mentioned that's good stuff. You mentioned practicing and your practicing routines.
Yep.
Let's see if I can get this. There we go. If you go to Marco's Facebook page and Instagram, there's one that you recently posted. I don't know if I can find this or not, but I wanted to share it with everybody. It may be this one. I think the angle looks right on this. So let me see if this is. Let me bring this up and see if that's it.
Huh.
Yeah. Mercy. Dude, that's ridiculous.
That guy is showing off.
He is, but it's a good showing off. That is amazing.
Yeah, that was funny because I was back from that was post Christmas holidays. Christmas holidays. Well, I guess in the states are the same. It's a festival of eating nonstop for days. So I was totally, absolutely out of shape, and then when you eat too much, hands are affected as well. So, so I was absolutely out of shape, and I had some actually elbow problems as well, which I had a couple of years ago because of lifting, too much of heavy weights, and I had to, kind of getting back in shape, and I found out one of those exercises crazy exercises that I used to apply when I was kind of younger, and I kind of went and tried it, and I was amazed by how at this age I could push it, mm-hmm. kind of easily than I used to do before. Because that's one of the things that I'm noticing, nowadays. When I do things I recorded in the past, and I tried it a few days ago doing, passages from records that I've done back in the mid 2000s, even fusion stuff that I recorded for others. And I clearly remember they were so hard at the time that I had to take my times and go through the different positions to find the right one. And I tried like the second pass like a few days ago, it was like all through it. So I probably, and the only reason I can give myself is that I'm just more mature to understand a few things more in the past, even technically, and more efficiently than 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So the efficiency versus the urge to do something, because back then I urged to do, to record stuff, and I had to find ways to do it. Especially in the fusion area, I was totally unaware of what was going on, and I had to learn stuff that I didn't know the existence of. And today was like, maybe, you get older, you get more, less comfortable doing stuff that you recorded when you were, in total shape.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, it was way easier to nail down stuff that I found really difficult back then. So I need that stuff, the exercises and things, even to prove myself that, all things are still in place in some ways. So all the picking stuff with, chromatic stuff, like the exercise, are a good way for me to uh, understand if I'm in shape or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I can relate. The more you learn, the easier it is to go back to the things that were hard for you in your early days. So, Marco, it's been great talking with you today. I've really enjoyed it. I'm going to ask you one more question, but before I do, um, I want to encourage you, if you're ever in the States, please come to Tennessee.
I will, man.
Hard out. That's where I live. That's where I've loved for all people like virtuoso guitarists. Try to see them whenever I can. I've seen Paul Gilbert, Steve Vai, Ingve Malmsteen. They did G3 together. Petrucci, Satriani. Now we got to get Marco Sfogli down here
Oh, yeah.
as soon as possible when all this stuff blows over. Definitely coming to Tennessee. And so, what is next? The last question I'll leave everybody with is, what is next for Marco Sfogli? You talked about, I thought it was very interesting, your songwriting process. You sit down, you get a melody in your head. Obviously, this happens probably almost every day. So those songs have to go somewhere. Are they like snippets of ideas? I mean, I do that myself. I record a video of something I played so I won't forget the melody if I want to work on it later. Are you working on a new album? Are you working on new courses? For myself, I would love to see an actual course where you're, talking. You recently did something on Facebook where you're talking through a solo that you performed for kind of like a benefit or something.
Yeah.
Highway solos, I think it was called. I love that style of teaching. You've got a wonderful background, a wonderful setup there, and it would be nice to see you doing some sort of mixing course. That would be interesting. I'd love to be able to see how you mix and. So just, I don't know, putting some bugs in your ear there. But what's next for you? You got albums in the works? You playing on different things? What's going on?
Yeah, well, there are two albums in the work, actually. Two albums, and PFM new album, which is kind of a sequel to the first one with me on guitars, which came out in 2017. Late 2017, and then the new Icefish record, which we have absolutely we want absolutely do, and as soon as this lockdown will finish, we have to set up a few days where at least the three of us can get together and write something together, because Verse lives in LA, so it's kind of difficult to get the whole band together. But at least the three Italian of us can get together and write stuff. So definitely a couple of new records, and then probably a new James LaBrie record, which is another long overdue, because the last one was in 2013. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how and when, but there has been discussions about doing another one, as long as this COVID lockdown at least will get by. At least to get into a studio, at least for James, I guess, which is the only one that, as far as I know, doesn't have a studio and can really track vocals until he gets somewhere. And yeah, so three records
Wow.
to do. In have an idea if some of them will come out later this year or early next year, but this is the plan in the near future. Can do shows, can do clinics and master classes, at least in person. So we gotta get the most out of it, and then try to be as productive as possible, doing records and recording, especially new stuff.
Yeah, I myself have said about all this kind of new situation we're in, where we're having to stay home and things like that. We can't do that. Can't do the things we wanted to do. Is that now is a wonderful time to sharpen your skills, to work on yourself, work on your own stuff. I mean, you see a music stand right next to me. I've got it facing the window so that every time I come into my music studio, I sit down and I practice. I mean, I've recently started getting back into this. You mentioned something during our lessons about how you used to track your practice in a journal or something. And I did that for a while with a course that I'd bought. It was actually using the Google spreadsheet, and it really worked very well. And I've decided to go back to that, and I'm finding that consistency of a routine is really helpful in seeing progress in my work. You mentioned Icefish. That's the band you're in over here. This was the first project. Now, I really enjoyed the behind the scenes video. I bought the package where I could get that behind the scenes video. I sit here and I watch that over and over sometimes, just because I like watching how things work, how things are built. And you see Virgil Donati over here, Alex Argentino, Marco Sfogli back here in the back, and his name has slipped my mind. What's the lead singer's name?
Andrea Casali.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Amazing bass player. I am stunned, as Virgil was when he was talking about it on the behind the scenes footage. I'm stunned at how he can sing and play bass like he does at the same time. Those complicated, odd timings and rhythms and stuff like that. It's just amazing. What they can do is amazing. You've been releasing a few things on your Facebook with Icefish playing live, and I really enjoyed those. I watch those every time they come out. But so that's exciting. Several albums in the works. I'll be definitely looking forward to that. Please bring us as much behind the scenes content as you can on that. Solos, all kinds of stuff. For my liking, there wasn't enough Marco on that tour behind the scenes, but that's all right. It's a band. I understand that. It can't be all Marco. So, guys, I really appreciate you. You just don't know how much I appreciate you coming and joining me today, Marco. Everything we talked about pretty much is in the links below. Please don't forget to check those out. He's working. Where do you prefer people find you, Marco, online?
Well, I have an official Facebook page. I don't have my website anymore since years, and Facebook can just replace the whole thing. But so you gotta go to Facebook and search like facebook.com/Marco Sfogli 80, and I guess it's that's the link from my fan page.
Marco.Sfogli.
Maybe.
Looked at it. It may be the. I remember you having an 80 in there somewhere. That may be the Instagram one. I don't know. You're on Instagram too.
It's probably the fan page.
Oh, okay.
Because I have an artist page as well on Facebook. That's the easiest way, because my actually personal page is full since months. And so the easiest way to get in touch with me is to my artist page or Instagram as well.
Okay.
And, just search on Instagram Marco Sfogli, and I think the first picture is the bald guy with the green guitar. It's just me.
It's the one on the thumbnail that I've got for this live stream. It's where you
absolutely that one.
That leather jacket,
Yeah. Trying to be a rock star.
Instagram. Now, we've just recently finished up 4 weeks of lessons, which are amazing, by the way. I've still got all that stuff to go through. So how long do you anticipate continuing lessons, if people want to get in touch with you about lessons and things like that?
Well, they can write me, and through one of those social media contacts, or you know, I have an email which is marcosfogli@gmail.com, where you know pretty much answer myself. So I don't have any secretary or person that works for me, so it's me
Yeah.
answering. And if I don't, write again, because
Yeah.
you must have finished in the spam folder probably. But anyway, it will be pretty much me.
Okay. Check out Marco's YouTube. Subscribe to that. Subscribe to this channel. I love bringing stuff like this. It's been the first interview I've done in years, but I had to take the opportunity. You just don't pass something like this up. So, Marco, once again, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Give me a shout sometime. It'd be awesome to collaborate with you on something, even if I was
Absolutely.
in a video with you.
You're a great guy and a great guitar player, I tell you.
Appreciate it, Marco. Thank you so much. Everybody else that's watching, thank you guys from both of us. Have a great day. God bless.